distinguished ladies and gentlemen, particularly leaders of parliament, I want to thank you once again for convening this conference, even though it was very inconvenient for me to come. I had to come because I wasn't at the second one that happened last year, or we were at the first one. And coming to the issues at stake, so because of time, it's very disheartening that we are at this stage in Africa. We now have to carry this burden as a result of many factors. Some of them mainly come from indiscretion, greed, corruption, and so many fairy tales which we took for granted. But I think that we are beginning to get something done now. And that's why I want to thank Representative Sarah Bendy and our other colleagues in Parliament for taking this bull by the horn, because most of these issues are legislative in nature, and most of them come back to being municipalized into municipal laws or domesticated into our domestic laws. So I don't understand why we got into all this mess that seemed to be so intractable. I listened to President Musa Beni yesterday. I'm not surprised that this is his calling, and he's very forthright in dealing with these issues, because they are multifaceted. It's not a single issue, and there is no single solution to it. Because it comes from our colonial past. Our colonial past have to do with it. Our own political discussion have to do with it. Our different cultural disunity in Africa have to do with it. And I ask ourselves, do we have the same culture? Really, do we have the same culture in Africa? And do we also really have the same interest? If we have the same interest and the same culture, so why is ECOWAS disintegrating at this time when we need Pan-Africanism? So we need to ask ourselves all those questions, because talk is very cheap. And that's the reason why I said the parliamentarians have now seized the bull by the horn, and this is where the solution lies. In 2017, in 2021, as the president of the African Bar Association, I raised this issue during my annual address about some of these very serious issues, and I outlined some of these treaties as creating problems. I deliberately did so because in that conference, there were 9 heads of states present, and there were about 13 or 14 representatives of heads of states and governments of Africa present. The AU was there, and several regional institutions, including the ECOWAS Court and other regional courts. And I thought it was the best forum, as the president of the African Bar Association then, to raise the issue. And it was an eye-opener for everyone. And the heads of states then, under the then President Goodluck Jonathan, who himself that year was the keynote speaker at the conference, quickly mobilized all the heads of states together, got power leaders into a meeting for us to look at all these things. And then we decided to set up an inter-advisory committee consisting of the bar and the committee of heads of states to start looking at these issues. I can't remember who was chosen as the chairman now, and I was co-chair, and we had 2-3 meetings. We had one in Zambia, we had one in Nigeria, I think another one in Cote d'Ivoire, and nothing came out of it. They simply, the decision we reached was to leave it for them to take back to the parliament, for the parliament to look at and for legal experts to look at. And at the end of the day, nothing came out of it. So I'm glad as the current chairman of the governing council, because I've since handed over as president, as the current chairman of the governing council, I'm glad we are part of this thing, because it's our responsibility to see to the end. But like I said, you must be guided by reality. You're not going to pull out and like I also said, the Bar Association is not an agitator. The Bar Association is a professional organization. It's not really an NGO, but what we do is to try to pick out all these things and deposit them at the door of those who have the power and the influence to sort them out. And we have done that. And I want to thank Dr. Antonio, who was at the annual conference of the African Bar Association last year in Zambia, in Lusaka, where he also raised some of these issues once again, along with Family Watch International. And so I believe that we are in the right place, Representative Sarah Bendy. We are in the right place, and we are doing the right thing, because The parliaments are the ones who can checkmate. So what the parliaments need to do now, one, to insist that those who go out to enter into treaty obligations for us must be those who are specialized in dealing with these issues. Secondly, Parliament must thoroughly, consistently review the clauses in these things, and if questions asked, people like us, like the Bar Association, we have always offered ourselves free of charge to help them look at these things, because we interact with all these organizations and with all these people, and we know their tricks. So I believe that for us, there is not much for us to say as the Bar Association, other than to say we are going to continue to leverage on our international experience and exposures in assisting parliamentarians to ensure that what we have done, we now have to undo. The issue of Cotonou agreement was issued in 2021. We shouted and shouted. They didn't hear it. They went and signed the Samoa agreement. And when we raised the alarm in Nigeria, when they came back, they called us all sorts of names. I was personally invited to the highest level of government to come and explain the rumors that are spread all over the country. And eventually, when we sat down and we brought out all the texts, they were shocked. But has anything been done about it? No. I think that we are in a terrible condition, and the parliamentarians should sit tight and do more about it. There are so many issues I would have loved to discuss, but we leave them to when the questions are asked about what role we can play, and then we'll be able to do that. Thank you very much.